So CSS basic selectors. CSS selectors are patterns used to select HTML elements that you want to style. Basic selectors are the foundation for targeting elements on the web page. So types of basic selectors, we have the universal selector, the type selector, or the element selector. And we have the class selector, we have the ID selector, and we also have the attribute selector. All right. So for the universal selector, this is how we use it. So we use this asterisk. So select all elements on the page. So asterisk selector, and then the declaration block, then your CSS style rules, margin set to 0, padding set to 0. All right, so use the universal selector sparingly as it can affect every element and may lead to performance issues. So from the definition, universal selector, just as the name implies, right, it selects all elements on a page. All right. And then the second type is the type selector, which we have seen just now, the element selector. So select all elements of a specific type. So like P. So this means that it targets all P elements in the document and then sets all the style rules we have in the declaration block. We have the class selector. So select elements with a specific class attribute. We use the dots operator before the class name. All right. So here is an example, dot, then highlight. So this means that there is an element in our HTML document with a class name of highlight. And if you want to select that element using class selector, you have to introduce the dot operator first before the class name. So it can be used on multiple elements to apply the same styles across different parts of the page. And then we have the ID selector. Select an element with a specific ID attribute. So we use the hash symbol before the ID name, just like the class. So, but the difference between class and ID is that we use dot operator for class selector and then the hash symbol for ID selector. So IDs should be unique within a document. Use them for styling single elements. So two elements cannot have the same ID attribute, all right? But multiple elements can have the same class name. That makes sense, right? And then we have the attribute selector. Select elements based on the presence of an attribute or its value. So here's an example. Type equals to text. We have seen this in HTML input form, right? The input field of a form element. When you set the type to text, you can easily style that input element individually or the input field whose type attribute is text, if that makes sense. You can change the value of this type. You may change it to email, password, or radio, checkbox, and then you can style them based on the name or the value of the type attribute. So what this example does is that it's actually changing the border, okay, the border of the input elements. So this attribute is useful for styling form elements or components with specific attributes. So let's look at how we can do that. Let's data our ends. So the first one is the type, which you've seen actually. So going forward, I will be using more of internal CSS because I don't want to start creating external style sheets for each document here, right? But I believe we all know how to use the inline, internal, and CSS at this point. So first, type selector. Okay. I'm not going to waste time on this because we've already seen that. So type means an element's name, right? Like h1, header, main, section, whatever element you see here, you can actually target it in your CSS and styling. So first, I would like to style the entire header. I would say header. I want header to have a black background. So first thing first, I'm gonna change this URL type. Good. Header. Of course, it's going to affect every other header we have in the document. Obviously, this is actually an header element. Let's confirm that. We have this header here, and then let's figure out where the other header is coming from. Where down and boom, we have it here. right? This header right here, which has H3 as its content. That's our mission. Do we have another one? I guess no. No. Okay, so we have just two, and that is why we have this black background twice. Okay, twice. Of course, you can't see its content because the default color for every content here is black. So black on black, obviously you can't see anything. So the reason we can see these links is because the default color for every anchor tag is blue. So to improve the experience, I'm going to change to white so we can see the content of that element. So refresh, and I don't know, it's loading. Did I save? Yes, I did. Okay, good. So you can see white color, text type, CSS type selector, right? And then of course this other header which has H3 as its content. H3 whose content is our mission. Okay, so that's type selector. You can proceed and say you like to change these anchors, right, to white as well. To white as a tag and say color white. All right, so that's that for type selector. The next one, we have the class selector, right? We have the class selector. So we use the class selector to style multiple elements. So if you have multiple elements in your HTML document whereby you would like to set the same CSS style rules on, right? You can easily give them the same class name. For instance, let's look at this document carefully. Let's look at this document carefully. If I want all the H2 to be centralized, to be aligned to the center, right? All the H2, for instance, this one, welcome to my website, about me, which other one? Our services, right? If I want to give them the same or unique style, I can easily give them the same class name. So what I'm going to do is I will target the first one, okay, and the class. So you have to introduce the class attribute on the element. So in the opening tag of the element, you're going to have the class and then you give it a name. This name now is left to you, but ensure that the name is descriptive. I mean, you can't just come up with any name. You can't say R2. What does R2 means? So you have to ensure that the name. I mean, if you target this R2 in your style sheet, it's going to work perfectly. But the point here is that create code that other users can understand or other designers can understand. So imagine you're actually collaborating with other developers or other designers, whereby you guys need to share your code, right? You don't need to be there, or you don't need to always tell the person that R2 means this. So if I see R2, I should know that this is what R2 means. So always come up with a descriptive name whenever you are naming your classes or your ID. As you can see, this ID here, we have home. So you can tell that this section is an ID for home, right? If you look at another one, we have ID for about. All right, so I'm going to give this, you can say section underscore heading. Okay, section underscore heading, the same class name. Now, the first one, we have the section underscore heading. I'm going to copy this. And then locate the other one. We have this other one too. So class name. Yeah, thank you. You can hear me. Section underscore heading for that heading. Then another heading too. I would like to give this section underscore heading. And I guess that's all. Yep, that's all. I think we have 3 or 4 of them. So in our selector now, so before we run the code or before we even start the style, let's ensure we have the web page up and running. So class, we have class that should be 06 dash class 06 class. Okay, good. So we have targeted all the heading 2 and then we have specified the same class name on them, right? So using internal CSS, again in the style elements. So before, you can't just say section underscore heading and say background color yellow. This won't work. So let's try it. Obviously, this is a class name, right? Yes. So to the browser, refresh. So there is no yellow background here, and that's because this selector is selected in a wrong way. So to select a class name, the first thing you need is a dot operator. Please, very, very important. A dot operator, then followed by the class name. So the class name in our case here is a section underscore heading. So section underscore heading. Save this back to the browser, refresh, and awesome. We have all the heading too with the CSS style by using class name selector. So I can proceed or extend the style rules and then specify another rule and say the element or this selector should have its text alignment set. Save, refresh, and then we have all the H2 at the center of their containers, right? You can as well change them to uppercase, right? Change everything to uppercase, and which is we have another CSS property for that. So text transform. So we have the capitalize, which I think is the default, and then we have the lowercase, none. We have the uppercase. So I want uppercase this time around. Save, back to the browser, refresh. So you can see welcome to my website, about us. Everything now is in uppercase. So that's that for class selector. You have to use the dot operator and then followed by the class name. Next up, we have the ID, which is a unique identifier, right? ID is a unique identifier, and I guess we have our IDs already. So all you need to do is to get the ID attribute, right? Get the ID attribute on the elements that you want, all right? And then if you want to style it, you have to use the hash symbol. So for class selector, we use the dot operator. Then for ID, we need the hash symbol or the hash operator. '07 ID.html. So CSS ID selector. So we have an ID here with the value of home, right? We have another one about. We have another one services. We have another one, I guess, contacts, and okay, that's all. So let's start this individually using the internal CSS. Again, in the head section, I will get the style, and then now before the ID name, we need the hash symbol. So I want to style the section with an ID of home. So we say hash, then by home, that's the ID name. Then I will say the background color should be Doja blue. Doja blue. There are actually about 140 color names. All right, you can choose any of the color names and then use. Don't worry, we're going to explain more about color when we get to that part of this program. Save to the browser, refresh. So this section now has the background color of Doja blue. Yes, because if you look at the section again, it is this section here, the home section with an introductory article. And if you look at the content of this section elements, it has this article, right? Which has this H2 and P. So welcome to my website, welcome to my home page, welcome to the home page of my site. Welcome to my website, welcome to the home page. So we are actually setting the background color on the parent element. So the parent element of this article element is section, right? And the direct child elements of article are the H2 and the P element. Okay, so we can proceed and style this as well, the about, okay, the about section. which has this h2 article again and this aside. So about. So since it's an ID selector, we need a hash symbol by the ID name, which is about, and then maybe the background color again. We can use any CSS style that you want, but then I just want to change the background color this time. So take gold, save, then refresh. So we have styled this section. So let's get the, I guess, the last one. There's another section with an ID of services, right? Yeah, services. Okay, we have contact as well. ID of services, and then ID of services. Let's go for orange. Orange red, because I feel good and orange look almost the same. Orange and the browser, refresh, and that's this section here, and maybe the contacts, just to ensure that we style that as well. So contacts, because I am sure that there's an element in my document that has an ID of contact, right? And here, okay, no, we have it here. So you see, this section here has an ID of contact. And then I can style it. So I would like to give it a background color. Orange. And yeah, we have it. This. So we can give the footer, we can give this footer an ID if you want. Let's say the footer, I will give this ID of footer. So I believe this name is descriptive. Anyone who is reading or going through this code will understand that this is the footer of my document. And then in the style, hash followed by the ID name, and then we can say background color is dark blue. Save. Nope, I opened the wrong document. Refresh, and then we have the footer. So this is how we select elements using the ID selector. The next one, or the next one? The next one is attribute selector. Attribute selector. Let's look at the document first. Attributes, good. So CSS attribute selector. CSS attribute selector. Now we can select or we can style an element based on the attributes of that element. And I would like to target the form, our form this time around. So first, I would like to change the text color of the input element whose type element is text. That is this one right here. As you can see, the type attribute of this input element is set to text, right? If I head back to the document first, on the web document, here is the input we are talking about. So the default is black. So I want to change the color here to red. So if I'm typing, instead of saying black color for each character, right, I want each character color to come as red. So to do that, I'm going to use internal CSS again. After the title, I'm going to say style. Now, we use this angle bracket. Right in the angle bracket, you need to specify the attribute name. So the attribute name and the value. So in this case, so to avoid any error, right, I will recommend or suggest that you copy it directly. So you can just copy it this way. So this is what we want to target here. Copy, and then go to inside this angle bracket, you paste that attribute name and the value. And then, so this is the selector. Now after the selector, we need a declaration block, that is a set of curly braces. So the declaration block, now I want the color to be set to red. Whenever I'm typing, I want red color. Save. Let's refresh, and then let's start typing. So you can see it has changed from black to red. Say this is red color. Okay, so let's do another one for email. And of course, if I type email is black because this input type value is not set to text but email. Let's check that. Let's go back to our form again. So you can see this for inputs for name, the input for email, the type value is email and not text. So if you want to change that, you have to select that. So I'm going to say first the angle brackets and type set to email. Has to be in quotes, please. Then the declaration block. I would like to change the background as well. So the background should be set to yellow and maybe green. That's going to be weird. But I mean, just for explanation purpose, I'm going to go for it. Save. So green and white. Save. So you see, we have the background as green. Ideally, the default value for color is black, but if I'm typing, it's going to be white because I have set the color to white. So that's how we can use the attribute selector. Same way, if we want to change what's it called, the link, right, using the attribute selector href, we can do that as well. So if I want to change the background color of this, okay, maybe services, right? All I need to do is in my style, angle bracket. So href is the name of the attribute, right? And the value is services. You have to spell it out the way it is. And then your declaration block. So I want the background color to be W. Save. Good. So you see it has changed. You can as well target the home if you want. You can say href home declaration block background maybe green color white font size 20 pixels font style. I'm just trying to get italic. Remember this italic in HTML, we use the EM or the I tag, right? So I mean with CSS, I mean you don't have to do that again. You can just come to your CSS and just use the font style property. And then I don't want text decoration, the underline, so I will change it. I will set the text decoration to none. I don't want the underline. So let's leave it. No, I'm not closing you. Save and there's this home right here. So let's see. Good, we have it here. So this is how we select elements using attribute selector. And then the last on the list is the universal selector. The universal selector, which selects all the elements in an HTML document. So first, 09 universal. Good. So CSS universal selector. Back to the code. Universal selector. Good. Very simple. I will introduce the internal CSS first by getting the style tag. Now, for universal selector, we use the asterisk symbol. So this asterisk symbol implies universal selector. It tells the browser to select all the elements on the web page. All right. And then after the selector, we need our declaration block. Right. So first, at it here, we haven't styled it yet. So I want to set all the all the text, all the content here, the color to green. So color, green, save. So let's see. It's going to affect everything on the document. You can see all the content has changed. Both the type elements, the ID element, the class selector, the class element, the one that has attributes or not, everything has changed. The color has changed from black to green. So I may decide to change the font family to cursive or any font family you want. We have different fonts family like Times New Romans. We have the Franklin. We have the cursive. Yeah, cursive. Go for cursive actually. Save this. Refresh. And then we have this. Now I may decide to say I want underline. I want every text to be underlined. So that's going to be text declaration underline. Save. Refresh. You see the H1. Obviously, this already comes with underline, so there is no need. Then we have the H2. Everything now has underline because we use the universal selector. But you have to be very careful if you are using the selector because, as you can see, it affects all the elements. So if you are not creating a document whereby if you are creating a document whereby you don't want a particular style rules to affect all the document, then avoid universal selector. All right. Mostly we use this universal selector to reset some CSS styles. Maybe you want to set the margin or the padding to 0. Then you can use the universal selector. All right, so that's that for the basic selectors in CSS.